Hey guys, Dr. Scott here. Had a request to talk a little bit about hydration status, fluid intake, a few of the things that are going on in the um, sports hydration business, like Gatorade and other drinks like that. How much you should take, how do you know you're hydrated? There's plenty of stuff on the internet. I'm going to kind of give you my take, my opinion, my experience, try to sort through some of the craziness of trying to decide what to do. Now, first of all, you got to understand one of the number one things, especially with individuals over the age of 60, is they're not getting enough fluid intake. And obviously why we need fluid intake properly to stay hydrated is a lot of body processes need proper hydration. We know if your blood plasma volume is decreased, your heart's going to pump a little bit harder to get the cardiac output. There is at the cellular level, okay, the cells need to work properly and flush out all the bad chemicals, okay. I won't go through all the details of specific physiology, but understand we need that. And we need to excrete waste, a lot of different things like that. Now, why I say the older population, sometimes they are not keeping up with how much fluid they need to replenish versus how much we're excreting. And the kidneys are going to reabsorb, secrete, and excrete. All right. So, a lot of times there's a lot of things that are happening that we're not staying in a proper hydrated status. Now, the best advice I could give you, okay, while sorting through all the information out there, you read 6 glasses a day, 8 glasses a day, and I'm talking when I say glasses of water or fluids. And we do get fluids and water, but just making sure you have enough. The best thing I could say, and the quickest way I can explain is take your body weight in pounds, divide it by half, and that should be approximately how many ounces of water you should be taking a day, or at least in some form of fluids, okay? Preferably water or very close to water, your beer and soda and everything like that. We won't go into that right now. And that's ballpark number, all right? Now, so you had a 200-pound individual and 100 ounces is what they should be taking. Now, it doesn't mean they're going to die if they take 60 ounces or, they take 110 and they're going to have like hyponatremia, which is a condition you kind of dilute your blood and your sodium level goes down. And that's another talk, so you don't want to overhydrate yourself and kind of drown yourself with too much water. That could be a problem also. But if for the most case, you're in that range, okay, you're probably doing pretty well with your hydration. And again, it's not a firm number. You'll get varying things, but if you can just stay within that level, that'd be great. Other things to look at to know if you're hydrated. Look at your urine color. You may have read about this before. When you're urinating, your urine should be either clear to maybe like a straw-like, pale yellow. So take a look at that. We used to do that with we'll recommend the athletes were doing that when they were at WVU, making sure they're staying hydrated. If you start seeing your urine, if you're an athlete especially, you work in a humid environment, sometimes you may even notice your urine gets so dark, almost looks like you may have blood. You're not bleeding, but it's extremely dark. That could be a problem. So looking at the urine color as well as making sure that on paper you're taking enough fluids, that's ideal. Now, one of the other things people will say, and you'll read in the literature, and this is where I realize some health professionals, may have been schooled a little differently than I have, but they'll say, well, you only need, so much water until you're thirsty. You don't need to take any more water than that, okay? Now look, you may not die, okay, or croak, depending on, what environment you're working on, but that's really not the ideal thing to do because your thirst receptors, your hypothalamus and the thirst receptors, they know, and there's a lot of research that proves it, don't get, until you're about 1 or 2% dehydrated, that it will actually trigger the thirst sensation in your body for you to drink. So you're actually starting to become dehydrated before your body picks that up. Now again, you're a little, similar to being a little hungry, you're a little dehydrated being, it's not a medical emergency right away, but it's something you should keep an eye on, especially if you're going to be an athlete. and you're going to be a runner, you're doing marathons, triathlons, because we only can absorb roughly 4 to 6 ounces every 15 minutes. Okay, so if you calculate that, we'll say 24 ounces an hour. Okay, again, another example that it could fluctuate a little bit. Someone will say, well, I can absorb 30 ounces, but I always give you kind of the ballpark or the consensus of the research. I mean, you can cherry pick a research article that says something slightly different, but 46 ounces. So if you're already in a deficit and you haven't been drinking and you're working, it's the middle of summer and you start running, you're like, I'm not thirsty, and you go the first 45 minutes, and you're doing a long run that could be an hour and a half, 2 hours, and you haven't been drinking in those first 45 minutes. Now all of a sudden you start drinking, you may be in a deficit and have some problems. And if you're an athlete, they even know, and again, the general consensus is anywhere 1 to 2% of loss of your body weight due to fluid loss, you could actually start having performance issues. Okay, again, someone will cherry pick an article. Okay, and I almost want to do a talk, one of these videos about deciphering the research, because you'll always find research that contrasts one opinion, but there'll be 100 articles that support something else, or the consensus is one way, but that's the idea. So you definitely want to start hydrating, especially if you're in activity, right from the beginning, especially if you are doing an endurance event. But the general lay public, again, 100 ounces if someone's 200 pounds, but divide your body weight. If you're in that ballpark most of the week with a urine color flow, you're probably doing okay. Now let's just talk briefly about sports drinks. And, the problem with the sports drinks is that they were marketed a lot with trying to get kids to drink them more. Okay, they're sugary, they taste great for some people. Some people think they taste like medicine. You really want to limit that, especially if you are just taking it for regular water consumption. Okay. Even in myself, doing endurance sports, training for Ironman, half marathons, it's a trick because you want to replenish ourselves with the extra carbohydrates in the sports drink. But the problem is that we can start over consuming the sugars and the calories, and we take in too much. My opinion that's shared by most, and you'll see again varying issues, is that unless your athlete that you're dealing with, maybe it's your son, your daughter, unless they're doing something over about 90 minutes intensity, they probably don't need to supplement anything more than regular water. All right, so if you see the kids at the local, doing a lacrosse tournament that I'm at a lot, if you follow me on Facebook, if it's just an hour and 15-minute game, the kids just need water. They don't need sports drink at all. Okay, it's just extra calories, sugar, and we don't need it. If they're doing a hotter weekend and they're going to be playing 3 games, or the game their activity level's higher, they could probably supplement some sports drink if they're not getting it in some food on the farm, because the liquid calories again will probably digest better than taking having them sitting there at the table throwing donuts down their throat. Then they may get stomach issues and gastric emptying issues and things like that. And the sports drink's easy to digest, and sometimes it helps them get the fluids that they need, okay, so that they're not sitting there, I don't want water. And then some people will be like, well, they should only drink water. But when you're starting to deal with someone that's out there for 6 or 8 hours, you want them to get the fluids in. I'm not usually worried. Even with my kids, we don't have soda in the house. We barely have juices in the house. They get water, but I will, like my older son, if he's doing cross-country track or training session in a longer period of time, or my younger one's doing lacrosse, he can take some Gatorade down, get some little carbs, get the glycogen levels up in their blood, the sugar, energy levels, as well as something that it's a little more palatable. Maybe they'll get a little bit of fluid into them to trick them. Other than that, if they're under an hour and a half, really don't need the sports drink. But again, if they are worried about that, take it. If they're taking it any other time, taking it to school, okay, I go nuts trying to convince people to get rid of, sugary, hot chocolate milks at schools and lemonades, okay? They do not need it. So again, the general thing I want you to take from here is you should concentrate on the hydration status. If you don't, some things you may not even pick up on what's going on with your body. You may just be be a little lethargic because you're a little dehydrated. Could increase your chance of kidney stones and other issues. Heart rate elevation a little bit because you're dehydrated. So some of it may not be really apparent. It's not something that comes on, but you do need to keep an eye on that. Again, body weight in half, roughly in ounces, give or take. Okay, a little bit, you're fine. Don't overhydrate. Okay, some of the guys in the gym I see with these big gallon jugs, I'm hoping they're just carrying their water in the jug because that's what they're going to take in the course of the day. They're carrying these huge gallon jugs. I said, I can't imagine they're drinking that much water while they're doing their 1 hour anaerobic weight room workout. Okay, I'm drinking less on the treadmill for an hour and a half than what they have in the jug. So hopefully not. So don't overdo it. Look at your urine color. Okay, that's actually the best to understand what's happening. Don't use strict thirst as especially with you doing sports activities or working in a hot environment. So I always gravitate to an athlete. You're someone that's in construction or you're working out there landscaping, or you're out in hot, humid environments. You should start drinking through the course of the day. And like I said, 4 to 6 ounces, so you figure 24 ounces an hour. If it's maybe 30 ounces an hour, give or take, if it's really humid. If you're inside, 12, 16 ounces an hour, you're probably okay. If you get in the world, if you're a triathlete watching this, you probably got everything calculated through your training on the amount of ounces and everything you take. But I try to do the lectures not just strictly to a triathlete community or runner community and the lake community. Try to give you something you can use through it. So again, you can always fact check my stuff. Very humble about it. I sit there and I read a lot of different things about this topic, and as well as other topics I talk about, and I kind of formulate my opinion consensus on where the trends are with the research. But you'll find some varying things on the exact ounces and things about thirst. My thing about thirst, some people just feel like you just have to base it on thirst only, and there's just overwhelming evidence that if you wait till then, especially in endurance, you're waiting a little too long. Okay, so again, hopefully that was helpful, and that's it. Have a great day, guys. Bye.